The state of Texas is one of just 2 death penalty states that make a determination of future dangerousness an essential precondition for imposition of a death sentence. In other words, a capital defendant is not eligible, as a matter of law, to be sentenced to death in Texas unless a determination is made at trial that there is a probability that the defendant would commit criminal acts of violence that would constitute a continuing threat to society. Once the determination is made at trial, however, there is no looking back. The judicial system provides no meaningful opportunity for post-conviction review to assess whether the future dangerousness determination at trial was in fact correct. Ramiro Gonzales, born on November 5, 1982, was a native of Texas. Gonzales, a 5 feet 2 inches Hispanic man, was convicted for the murder of Bridget Townsend in January 2001, after he called the home of his drug supplier, her boyfriend, in search of drugs. The case went unsolved for 18 months. Then, while sitting in jail after pleading guilty to the rape of another woman, Gonzales confessed to Townsend's killing and led authorities to her body. Ramiro Gonzales was sentenced to death on September 29, 2006. Just 71 days past his 18th birthday at the time of the crime for which he is sentenced to die, Ramiro is one of the youngest persons to be sentenced to death in the United States since 2005. When the Supreme Court held in Roper v. Simmons that the Constitution bars imposition of the death penalty on anyone under the age of 18. Ramiro Gonzales was born out of wedlock to a 17-year-old mother, Julia Gonzales Saldana, in Dilley, Texas. During the pregnancy, Julia, who has struggled throughout her life with substance abuse, drank alcohol, used inhalants, and abused other drugs and, at one point, even attempted to induce an abortion by intentionally overdosing on drugs. Ramiro's father, Jacinto Sanchez, was not listed on Ramiro's birth certificate and played no role in his upbringing. Abandoned by his mother at birth to be raised by his maternal grandparents, Ramiro grew up in a tiny home, crowded with extended family members, on an expansive, desolate ranch on which his grandfather worked long hours as a ranch hand. Throughout his childhood, Ramiro was left alone for most of the day with no adult supervision or guidance. As a result, he was subjected to physical and sexual abuse by a cousin as early as age 6 and was introduced to alcohol and drugs by members of his own family at the age of 11. When Ramiro was 15, his aunt Loretta, the one family member who had showed him love and affection, was killed in a head-on collision with a drunk driver. Loretta's death plunged Ramiro into inconsolable grief. Unequipped to deal with the loss of his beloved aunt, Ramiro turned to drugs to numb his pain. Within a year, he had dropped out of school. After repeating multiple grades, he was still in 8th grade at the age of 16. In the years that followed, Ramiro's life spiraled out of control. What started as self-medication quickly descended into full-blown addiction. While he had previously had only minor contact with the juvenile justice system, Ramiro's deepening addiction led him to commit a series of drug-related criminal offenses, culminating in the tragic kidnapping and murder of Bridget Townsend, his drug dealer's girlfriend. As a child, Gonzales was frequently sexually assaulted. He turned to a life of drugs and crime. But while on death row, he became a devoted Christian and said he was deeply remorseful for the murder. Gonzales' attorneys, Thea Posel and Raul Schoenman, previously made requests asking the board to change his death sentence to a lesser penalty. He has earnestly devoted himself to self-improvement, contemplation, and prayer, and has grown into a mature, peaceful, kind, loving, and deeply religious adult. He acknowledges his responsibility for his crimes and has sought to atone for them and to seek redemption through his actions, Gonzales' lawyers wrote in a request to the U.S. Supreme Court. In their appeals to the Supreme Court, Gonzales' attorneys said his track record these last 18 years shows he was not dangerous, pointing to his commitment to his Christian faith, ministry to others behind bars, and his unsuccessful attempts to donate a kidney to a stranger in need. Additionally, they said the evidence relied upon to make the finding of future dangerousness was false. An expert witness who diagnosed the inmate with antisocial personality disorder relied on recidivism data later found to be incorrect, and he later evaluated Gonzales and walked back his testimony. Texas death row inmate Ramiro Gonzales was executed by lethal injection Wednesday, the 26th of June 2024, despite numerous appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court. For the 2001 murder and rape of a teenage woman Bridget Townsend. The 26th of June 2024, the day would have been Bridget Townsend's 41st birthday. Instead of having a party, her family was in Huntsville watching her killer be put to death. Gonzales' last appeal for an execution stay argued that at sentencing, debunked data was used to establish that he would continue to be a threat to society. That argument was rejected by the U.S. Supreme Court late Wednesday, the 26th of June 2024 afternoon, and was taken into the death chamber at 6 p.m. His last words were, "To the Townsend family, I'm sorry I can't articulate, I can't put into words the pain I'll have caused y'all, the hurt what I took away that I cannot give back. I hope this apology is enough," he said. "I lived the rest of this life for you guys to the best of my ability for restitution, restoration, taking responsibility. I never stopped praying for all of you. I never stopped praying that you would forgive me and that one day I would have this opportunity to apologize. I owe all of you my life, and I hope one day you will forgive me." After being strapped to the gurney and with his spiritual advisor placing a hand on his chest, Gonzales was administered the lethal dose. Gonzales was pronounced dead at 6:50 p.m. following a chemical injection at the state penitentiary in Huntsville. Gonzales' execution was the nation's 8th this year. He was 41 years at the time of his execution. In the United States, by this time last year, 13 inmates had been put to death.